Hello and welcome back. We are here at the World Upshift Forum in Lerici, Italy at the Bay of Poets. And you may have tuned in with us already for some of the other segments, but we're back now for our final segment and we have some amazing things in store for you. But if you've been with us, you might be wondering, why are they coming to us from Italy? Is there a reason, or did they just pick this beautiful place? And let me tell you, it would have been fine if we just picked this beautiful place because it's actually very wonderful here. Food's incredible, the people are nice. Couldn't ask for a better view, but there is something much deeper about why we chose to launch the first ever World Upshift Forum from Lerici, Italy at the Bay of Poets. And so we have some exciting depth and insights in store for you.
We do, and more extraordinary, we're actually in Hotel Shelley broadcasting this now. We're going to hear from our CEO, Roger Casale. He's got a deep connection with the great poets Byron and Shelley, and he's going to be telling you a little bit more about our purpose and why we are here and making that connection. So here we're going to hear from Roger now.
I'm standing in the Shelley Park in Lerici, Italy. Lerici, the Gulf of Poets, where 201 years ago, the poet Percy Bysshe Shelley drowned on his way back from Livorno by boat at the age of 29. But the spirit of Shelley lives on. And Shelley would have been very interested in the annual Lerici World Upshift Forum, our Human Consciousness Forum. Shelley would have been very interested in the discussions today about science and spirituality, and the idea that consciousness is a fundamental part of our reality. That was an insight, that was a deep insight that came, of course, from many religions and Eastern religions, but also was something that romantic poets like Shelley deeply believed. And Rupert Sheldrake, whose work we celebrate, once asked the question, if the material world is conscious and consciousness is a fundamental part of our reality, I wonder if the sun is conscious. And if the sun is conscious, I wonder what it's thinking about. It's an interesting question. It's a question that poets love. They can ask it with poetic license. It's a question that Shelley would have loved. In fact, one of Shelley's most celebrated fragments of poetry is a dedication to the moon. And I'm going to read To the Moon by Percy Shelley to you now. To the moon. Art thou pale for weariness of climbing heaven and gazing on the earth, wandering companionless amongst the stars who have a different birth, and ever changing like a joyless eye that finds no object worth its constancy? Another point of connection for us in the World Upshift movement with the Romantic poets, and Shelley in particular, is not just the idea that consciousness is all-pervasive in the universe, but also that there is a deep bond, a deep common bond that unites us all as members of humanity, of the community of human beings on this earth. And just as the rivers flow to the sea and the stars gravitate together in new constellations, so we, as conscious human beings, are connected and drawn together in accordance with the same laws of nature. At least this is what Shelley, I'm sure, would have believed. And in another short poem, Shelley brings this beautiful thought to life in this way. And the poem is called Love's Philosophy. Love's Philosophy. The fountains mingle with the river, and the rivers with the ocean. The winds of heaven mix forever with a sweet emotion. Nothing in the world is single. All things by a law divine in one spirit meet and mingle. Why not I with mind? See the mountains kiss high heaven and the waves clasp one another. No sister flower would be forgiven if it disdained its brother. And the sunlight clasps the earth, and the moonbeams kiss the sea. What are all these kissings worth, if thou kiss not me? The third connection I would like to make between Shelley and our work in the World Upshift movement relates to the social engagement of the Romantic poets and Shelley in particular. And Shelley had a very strong sense of how vainglorious was the search simply for accumulated power and wealth from a cosmic perspective, but also out of his burning sense of injustice. And he knew, as we know, that all such things must pass. So I'm going to read now a poem about which tells a story. It tells a story about the Egyptian pharaoh Ramesses II, who's also known as Ozymandias. And Shelley imagines a traveller, perhaps it's you or me, who comes across the ruins of a 20-meter high statue of the pharaoh, which he had built to himself in the desert. But now it lies in ruins. All his power and riches have dissolved in the sands of time. And it is a metaphor for, which reminds us that all material things must pass for the new to emerge. Ozymandias. I met a traveller from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away.
It's great to hear from Roger. I mean, it's what I think is lovely about that is just to bring some context to where we are, to the history, to the power of poetry, the power of the word. I mean, these writers were writing about things that you can totally relate to today from such different times. So I love that. And really honor Roger for taking the time to do that.
Yeah, it was great to hear from Roger. And you're right. I mean, this place is very special because it ended up bringing us poets like Byron and Shelley, who he mentioned, and Keats. These people who were actually tapping into what's possible in an elevating consciousness, but much, much before our current time. So it's beautiful to be able to connect to those things that were seated here.
Yeah,
right?
Agreed.
And also, we have for you coming up a series of things that's going to include some people that are very tapped into how to elevate consciousness and participate in these both thought leadership aspects and practical aspects, including legacy peacekeepers in the world and people that are working on research in this area, as well as some emerging innovations in this space. So first, we're going to bring you someone who is working on the power of women. Ooh. What do you think about that, Jarvis?
Well, I mean, there's been a few speakers today that talked about the power of women. For example, Justina and Kunde Embu talking about the relationship that Africans have with the woman. Ooh, and, yes. And being the mother, being the closer connection to this thing we call God or life force. And actually, it really awoke something within me because we've lived in a predominantly a patriarchal, quite masculine world for as long as certainly I can remember. Mm-hmm. But suddenly we're getting this re-emergence and honoring of the divine feminine in men and in women. I don't think it's exclusive just to women, but so I'm really, really looking forward to how we can learn from the power of the woman.
Yes, so we're going to hear from our dear friend Shanali, who is coming to us. She's actually in Sri Lanka. She is the founder of Women, the Power of Women. And they just did a huge conference called DPOW that it was an overlay to the G20 summit, a mover and a shaker, very tapped into what's emerging. So let's hear from her.
Ooh.
Hello, my name is Shanali Rajaratnam, and I am the founder of Power of Women. And when you're talking about the women's role in global upshift, I think the Power of Women is really working at the center of it all in terms of unfolding what women are contributing to the society. When we look at the word history, it says history, and it really is important for us to really take a reflective outlook on this concept because maybe 100 years ago, women were not really allowed to write books or hold positions of power in terms of politics, be in the public, really defining how the perspective is shaped, although women constitute half of the population. So it's really important for us right now to understand the role of women, the importance of women, to even accept the contribution women have to offer. When we're talking about women's leadership, for example, that's what Power of Women is about. Leadership is not just about political leadership. It's about leadership in your communities, leadership in your life, leadership in families, leadership in any area where you really have to stand up and take that role of, hey, how do I want to show up and really shape how things are happening in the world? So women, I think their role is so multifaceted. We cannot really just put it into one area and say, hey, this is where their role is most significant. Because I think when you talk about half of the population being women, we are in everything. And when we really think about it, why are we here? How are we here? We all have a mother that gives us birth to this world. So essentially, for humanity to exist, we need women. So when we're talking about this upshift, it goes without a say, women play such a significant role. Just to talk about a few areas, when we're talking about the economy, leadership roles, the environmental stewardship, and most importantly, education among so many other sectors, women are at the forefront of really leading these sectors. Whether we like it or not, with the economy, women spend the most amount of dollar or amount of financial contribution towards the world economy. And I want to just take a moment to talk about the educational component of women. if you really look at the stats from 2022 about the female teaching component in the world, more than 90% of pre-educators are women. So that tells us that values and virtues these little kids are learning are coming from women. So women play such a significant role in shaping our next generation. It's really important that we really recognize and respect these contributions so that we can actually give the resources, the necessary resources women need to really shape our next generation. Even going back even further, when we are talking about mothers, our mothers are our first teachers. They teach us what we eat, what we hear in terms of what we are going to be speaking, everything we learn from our parents. So mothers play such a crucial role. It's really about time that we take a reflective approach to understand these contributions, and then also recognize and value and respect these contributions and really work together. And power of women is exactly that. When we talk about working together, it's about collaboration. It's not about women taking over. It's about really taking the matriarchal leadership. What does that say? That means egalitarian values are most often associated with matriarchal leadership, where women and men are considered equal. And we respect each other, and there's less gender discrimination, and there's more opportunity for everybody to work together. A few weeks ago, Power of Women did something called Power of Women Digital Conference, and it ran in parallel to the G20 Summit. And the whole idea with Power of Women is two things. We really want women to step into their greatness, and two, bring men as unwavering pillars of support in this journey of how can we work towards solutions together, really taking the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals as our center point. So really, how can we all work together towards peace and well-being for ourselves, our loved ones, and the environment? Because that is something important to remember, is we can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have a healthy environment to live in, I mean, what are you going to do with all that money? You can have all the power in the world, but if you don't have people healthily, happily living without struggling, not trying to survive, how are you going to even, what's the point of that power? You can't really enjoy it. So it's really about taking that concept of peace and well-being, because if you really ask yourself, what are we all working towards? Even to have the most amount of money, the power, working multiple jobs, to getting a certain education, we are all looking for peace of mind at the end of the day, and well-being for ourselves, our loved ones, and the place we live in. And what we were doing at the Power of Women Digital Conference was a few things. One is we're very much focused on creating an ecosystem to really build edutainment. And edutainment is whether it's music, media in all formats, and entertainment to create content, events, and experiences that really broadens the perspective of our current worldview. How can we amplify the voices of women so we can incorporate the female perspective into decision-making processes in all formats of decision-making processes, whether it's a politically or community level, family level, or as an individual? How are we bringing that leadership, and how are we incorporating that female perspective into decision-making processes? And why did we run it in parallel to the G20? Because there's a very interesting story behind it. When I looked at the leadership at the G20, which is the 20 most powerful nations coming together with the highest GDP, I mean, there are 20 leaders in total. Out of 20, there's 18 male leaders and 2 female global leaders. That clearly tells us there's a huge imbalance in terms of how these perspectives are incorporated, and G20 is really deciding the future of our world at this point. Even though the 20 most powerful countries are coming together, it really is playing a role in terms of the holistic view of how we're experiencing this world. economically, discussing the climate crisis, to all important pertinent issues of the world. So when we did the Power of Women Digital Conference, our goal was, hey, we can continue to blame people and say, hey, we need equality, we need exactly the same number of women leaders as male leaders, or hey, what is happening, what is happening that is important. What can we do? How can we show up and really contribute to make things better instead of sitting there complaining or pointing fingers? Because where has that gotten us at this point? We really have to do something. So what we did was, hey, let's bring women leaders from different sectors and have them share their perspective. How are they contributing to the world? And how do they see the world? So we can really amplify the voices of female leadership. At the same time, when women are leading, we wanted to show that matriarchal, that egalitarian values being incorporated, how we bring men into the picture. It's not just about dominating women's perspective, how we incorporate men and that male perspective into decision-making processes, or sharing how they see the world, because it's really about balance. When we talk about equality, we're talking about balance, because we don't want to tip the balance to any side. Because when there's a balance, we can really show up into a safe space and really share our perspectives, really share how we see the world and how things need to get done. And that's true democracy, when we can really show up and really not feel threatened or judged for sharing our perspective. And Power of Women was in two folds, really amplifying the voices of women alongside G20, so that we can really show, hey, this is what women have to offer. Let's start considering how we can incorporate female leadership and perspective into decision-making processes. And at the same time, creating that safe space for people to come, because we had polling incorporated. How can we share how we see the world? And also, in essence, creating that edutainment. So when we talk about, again, history, where there's so much content, books, movies, that's very male perspective driven. How can we really now share her story, share more female driven perspectives, so we can have content that really broadens our narrative, how we see the world. So that way, one of my favorite things is when you change your perspective, you really start experiencing life differently, because your experience change when you change your perspective. And how do we do that? We have to bring fresh perspectives, incorporate that female perspective into storytelling, utilizing it in music, media in all formats. So that way we can really understand where things are coming from, not just it being one-sided. How can we have more context to what is happening in the world? Incorporate that innovative solutions women have to offer in all areas of the world. So our goal was to really start something, start a space, start a platform where we can actually start having those conversations. Really, how can I show up without feeling judged, but really come together and share in a safe space, and really let's take a solution-driven approach for the things that's happening in the world. So I think when we're talking about the role of women in this upshift, it's not a secret that we're all feeling very uncomfortable right now in the world. There's something happening. There is a climate crisis going on, whether we like it or not. In this year, 2023 summer, you really see there's so much happening with the environment, way more than before. There are so many natural disasters happening frequently. And when we're talking about the role of women, you call nature Mother Nature. So women being mothers, women have the capability of being mothers. We really are at the forefront of even shaping that, being environmental stewardess, and really shaping how we really take this forward. So this shift that's happening, it's really happening, and whether we like it or not, we are a part of it. It's a matter of how do we want to show up and be a part of it. It's a matter of how can we collaborate with each other. It's about women and men working together. It's not about saying, hey, it's all about women or it's all about men. It's really bringing that matriarchal leadership forward. How can we come together? How can we really bring those values of empathy, compassion, love, communication, being understanding of each other, being accepting of each other? Again, matriarchal values of inclusivity, really recognizing and respecting, really identifying, hey, what is going on? How can we work together to bring about solutions for it? So it's really, we are in that position in this world right now. It's a very special time, actually. We are going through this evolution, this shift. It's how are we going to show up and really shape that shift? Because it can go anyway. It's a matter of how do you want to be a part of shaping that shift, whether it's going to be positive or negative. And it's, again, how do we want to experience life? And when we really recognize each other, we can really work together to bring something positive for all of us.
Wow, I love Shonali's energy. Don't
She's
you?
amazing. Absolutely amazing.
The things that she said about balancing the masculine and feminine, that we need both men and women right now, it's really true. Moving into a true empowerment is really requiring all of us to show up so fully.
Agreed. Maybe that's what this dimension, this experience of life is all about, balancing that masculine and feminine.
It might just be
that relationship.
It's certainly included in there, right?
Yeah.
So next we have somebody very special for you. He is a friend of mine and a friend of Unify and a friend of the World Upshift movement and organization. He's going to be speaking on the role of strategy and wisdom in the global upshift. And this is our very own Ken Foster.
Well, hello and welcome, everybody. I'm so happy to join everyone in this conference about upshifting our consciousness, upshifting our life, upshifting our planet, our environment, and all the things that go along when we upshift ourselves. You know, you've probably heard the quote by Gandhi, but I'll say it again because it's worth mentioning. And that is, if you change yourself, you'll change the world. You'll do your best to change the world, right? And really, that's what we're doing here with the upshift. We're upshifting, of course, ourselves. But as a result of that, what do we get to upshift? Well, we get to see things that we've never seen before as we upshift ourselves. We get to see the unseeable, know the unknowable, and do the impossible. It only takes a few of us, collective together, and we can actually change the world. Absolutely. But first, we have to do the work. And what's the work? Well, the work is really turning the focus from the outside to the inside, to tuning into yourself, to start to ask yourself questions like, who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose? What is it that I'm going to leave behind as a legacy when I leave this planet? Now, those are some pretty deep questions, but how do we get to those questions? Well, I've been working with business owners and entrepreneurs and housewives and children and people that were ready to upshift their life over the last 28 years. I've worked with tens of thousands of individuals that have actually upshifted their consciousness. How did they do that? That's the question a lot of people wonder. Well, we have a lot of tools today. We have affirmations, we have meditation, we have prayer, we have a lot of science that we can look at. We can study science, and now all the science now leads us to the understanding that the ancient scriptures were really right. We were all connected, right? We all came from one source. The science is starting to show that. The Nobel Prize in physics with the entanglement theory, showing that what's happening in one place impacts what's happening things across miles or universes. we are all connected. Once we understand that, once we start to live from that place of oneness, that how I show up in the world impacts everything. In other words, everything counts. But how do we get to that place for our own personal lives? A lot of times that's a challenge, right? I like to start with just assessing where we are. I believe that introspection is one of the keys to having us upshift our own consciousness. So what is introspection? Well, that's about looking into yourself. And what I like to do is just start with assessing. I like on a scale of 1 to 10. And listen, if you're watching this, if you have a pen and paper, I encourage you to go get it. But really, on a 1 to 10, where are you with your awareness of what's going on in the world? Just rate yourself. Where are you? On a 1 to 10, where would you rate your consciousness of oneness, of connecting with each other? On a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate even your health or your vitality, your fitness? How would you rate that? On a scale of 1 to 10, some of the tools that we know work to raise consciousness: mindfulness, meditation, affirmation, living in gratitude, practicing the presence of being completely aware. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you with that? You know, and it can be simple. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you with your family, right? Have you made peace with your family, with your religion of origin, with your country of origin, with your world? Have you made peace with that? If not, it's time to start to think about, you know, I can upshift my consciousness. We know that the power of intention is powerful. We know with Lynn McTaggart's work in the, let's see, her book was called I think The Power of Eight. Well, you can Google it. But with that work, she showed scientifically how when 2 or more, or 8 or more, or 15 million or more come together, we upshift the consciousness through the power of intention. I personally have been teaching classes for many years to accelerate the consciousness of those individuals that come into these classes. You know, if you're willing to not just listen, but to actually go and take some time to create the practices that you know are really necessary. And by the way, we all need reminders. So I'm not trying to be your preacher today. I'm just here to remind you that deep within your soul is the essence of you, that you're an atom of the universe. You're a starseed. You have more power in your little pinky finger to, in fact, in that little pinky finger, the atoms in that finger, if we split those atoms, would light up the whole United States, basically, right? You have power. But a lot of times it takes courage. It takes courage to step up into the upshift conversations because, you know, we're not just about talk. We're about action. We're about uplifting. And when uplifting doesn't come by just thinking, it comes through action, and it comes through service to one another, and it comes through a shift in consciousness where we actually understand, we realize who we are at the core of our being. And as a result of that realization, everything shifts. We do get to see the unseeable and know the unknowable and do the impossible. We do get to bring more solutions to the world instead of more problems. We become the solution, not the problem. And, you know, this is a new movement that we're putting together with some really powerful people. Dr. Irvin Laszlo, of course, is the stimulus of this movement. You know, and if you don't know him, you know, you should get to know him and read some of his books because they've upshifted the thinking of literally millions of people on this planet already. And that millions can be you. Now, one other strategy I want to give you is it's not through more information, as I mentioned. Google it if you need more information. The upshift movement is about wisdom. It's about realization. So how do we realize that divinity that lies within all of us? How do we realize our courage? How do we realize our wisdom? Well, I'm going to mention this. There's a book you can get. Yeah, I wrote it, but you know what? It's worth mentioning. It's called The Courage to Change Everything: Daily Strategies and Essential Wisdom to Awaken Your Inner Genius. And isn't that what we're talking about here? We're talking about daily strategies, because I don't know about you, but remember I talked about remembering who we are? I know who I am at my core. I realized that many, many decades ago, but sometimes I forget because the ego is very strong, and I'll bet you do too. But with that book, every single day, you're reminded of who you are. You're given wisdom from the teachers, the ancient teachers and modern teachers, so that you can connect to wisdom. And then I give you the formula in that book, how to realize that in your own life. Realization is the key. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad they've given me just a few minutes to talk with you. And if you'd like to get that book, you can go to couragetochange.us. And if you'd like to find out more about me, you can go to kendfoster.com. Thank you so much. And I'm glad you're here participating. My last thought is this. If you resonate what's going on with the Upshift conversations, please get involved. This movement really grows one person at a time. And you are the one, if it's speaking to your heart today, volunteer, step up. And I look forward to seeing you on the journey. Take care.
So great to hear from Ken Foster. I mean, he's not only an incredible author and a coach, but actually a dear friend of Irvin Laszlo, who was the inspiration, the kind of manifesto, if you like, of this World Upshift movement. And it's what's amazing to me is that just within a very short space of time, and it's been within a year, that we've pulled together so many inspirational wisdom keepers, upshifters, change makers, disruptors. And as you've seen today, there's just amazing people around us. But what I'm probably wondering actually why I'm standing here alone, like where's my kind of co-host? But Tammy is actually going to be speaking to organizations, a collective of organizations, on the coherence and radical collaboration in the global upshift. So this is a clearly defined, living, breathing community of organizations that are already co-creating and collaborating in this space. Excuse the motorbikes going by. So we're now going to hear this amazing conversation about these organizations and how they are upshifting in the world.
You're going to just be able to see a bunch of different ones of us sharing our heart with you today. Roland McCready is with us, so we'll get a chance to hear from him. But we're going to start by going to Julie Kroll, who had a connection field 1.0. Some of you that are on the call were part of that beautiful experiment. And this is rising up out of that. It's like none of the things that we put energy into and went away have gone away. They've just created some really rich compost for a beautiful garden to flourish in. So I'm going to go ahead and spotlight your video, Julie, and so exciting that we get to be here in 99 days. We did our mission and now we're not stopping. We're rolling right along.
I love that. I love that you talked about the repurposing. It's like, I was just on a call talking about superorganisms, and we don't waste resources as a superorganism. What we let off, someone else picks up and uses for fuel and nourishment and energy. And so I love that. So I just want to say yes, acknowledge many of you in the room are from Connection Field 1.0. Hello, good to see you all again. And yet, as I'm watching that amazing graphic from Alexei, moving. It was like what I was feeling was like, oh yeah, we're over here in this community. And we were slowing down and getting to know each other. And then, oh, there's something going on. Oh, let's move over here really fast. And we started moving. And we've been watching this pattern of our communities doing that very thing. One community coming over and we share and we bring all of our good of the whole community over to World Unity Week, and we share, and then Unify has a big event and we're sharing that, and like we're in this beautiful dance. And I love that moving diagram that just brings to life the reality of the connection field. So just briefly, Connection Field 1.0 started in March of 2020 with COVID, when our advisory council said, what do we do to stay connected? We're supposed to, you know, do the quarantine thing. And within 9 days, literally within 9 days, a 24-hour Zoom room was opened. And as soon as we put out just this little tiny 1 minute and 11-second 111, thanks, Teresa, video, Brother Chief Filling Jr. saw it and said, I'm bringing my community. And then others began to bring their community in. And it grew exponentially with no resources, with 100% volunteer teams holding it, and people saying, I'll do an offering, I'll do a sharing, and programming just emerged organically. And one of the special things that emerged during that time was the Resonance Lounge. We were practicing having a heart resonance meeting every Monday for 9 years, this collective together. And it was this really important piece for us to do a coherence practice and to bring that in. And so we're going to talk about that later when we bring in the Coherence Cafe. I'm really excited about what's to come. But as we began, I just want to close and then I'll pass the torch here. The connection field grew so fast and so many beautiful offerings. Many of those things are still going today, which is a tribute to incredible volunteerism and service of many. The fire team, many of you are in the room today with us. The fire still goes every single day. It's amazing, completely volunteer service. And many other offerings are still going. And some of those Resonance Lounge hours are still going. And many of the groups that got started on Monday afternoon, Men in Connection still's going, a women's talking circle still going. There's so many beautiful things. The Global Heart team is still there on Thursdays. So we've watched as those things happened while other organizations began doing the very same thing. World Unity Week emerged because it was going to be the caravan of unity across the US. But all of a sudden COVID set in, and how do we do it online? How do we do it virtual? And many different programs began. And so this is another up-leveling of many of our communities coming together, sharing resources, acting as a super organism where we can share and really come together and work in reciprocity of really lifting up one another and doing even greater things than we could do as individual organizations. So we're really excited. Shout out to Teresa Collins with Global Coherence Pulse. Wow, like the infrastructure, the architecture, the dedication, the knowing how to bring communities, learning communities together online has been exquisite. Teresa brings an incredible energy in. Kati J, as she mentioned, has been working behind the scenes tirelessly, helping get the islands up, helping to create that structure so it feels really good when we get there. And then, of course, our dear Tammy, Scarlett with Unify has been right in there with this core team, bringing something really special forward. So I'm going to pass the talking stick over to Tammy and just once again say thank you all for showing up here and welcome. And we'll see you inside the connection field, which adds so many different elements to what we've already done with Connection Field 1.0 that we have live and virtual experiences together. And we're really looking forward to continuing to up level those offerings and many of your islands that are getting turned on and opened up. And we'll talk about the Coherence Cafe in just a few minutes. Tammy.
Thank you so much, Julie. Wow, that was a kind introduction. I am thrilled to be here today with everybody in celebration of the Connection Field and the Coherence Cafe. And I'm thrilled to be able to be participating in this really fun, playful collaboration. Because when this came up, it did not feel like a task. It did not feel like something that had to get put on my calendar or my to-do list to satisfy on the checklist of like all the responsibilities or obligations for Unify. It felt like emergent. It felt exciting. It felt authentic. It felt beautifully invitational without any over attachment to exactly how it had to play out or exactly what was going to be the outcome. The only thing that we, I think, all knew together conversationally that was going to be an outcome was that it would be an iteration of some kind of new radical collaboration, that it would be a learning model of a play space of what would be possible when we all come together and try something new. And that has a lot of staying power or sticking power for me because it continues to be exciting. It's not a drop in the bucket, a flash in the pan. It's something that has an evolution to it that's like built in the framework of the way that it is that we're playing together. So I just wanted to share that piece because for me, that's my excitement of engagement, and that is not diminished. It keeps growing over time as we keep working on this together. And I've of course, I'm executive director of Unify, and I've brought to the table Unify as an organization to say, hey, we will fully be here. We'll show the connection field to our audience that's present on all these different platforms and show them what's possible when we co-create a play space together and a growing space together. Some of the ideas that I have had about that when really leaning in meditation time and when we're in these spaces together is that I think it's possible for people to be seen more, like truly seen, not like here's my selfie and here's what I ate for dinner scene, but here's like me and my life and my world and who I am in the world. And I want to see that in you too. And I think we'll get that opportunity in this space. And then also just being able to have an opportunity to engage authentically without it always having to be about marketing. Here's the attributes of you as a demographic. And so here's all the things that come at you on apps. But this is a way for us to experience technology in a way that is reflecting our authentic selves and then allowing us to be in reciprocity in that with each other. So I am just, look, we're not coming out the gate saying like, hey, this is something that we've figured out and here's how it works and here's how it's done. We're coming out the gate saying like, we have no idea how this works and let's play together and see what emerges. And so play with us, come play with us in here and see what emerges, see what's possible for you, what's possible for us, what's possible for our communities. If you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, then I know Khadija is going to walk us all through how to get involved and what it's about and what's behind the curtain. But within the connection field is the thing that we're launching today here with everyone, which is the Coherence Cafe. And the reason that's so special to me is because that's going to be kind of our first, well, Teresa said it earlier, our first like nurture offering. Here's a space where we can show up and be in this beautiful presence with ourselves, with the connection field, with the unified field, with each other. And so, yeah, I'm just wildly excited and honored to be a part of it. And thank you everybody who's here for your presence and your energy. And I hope we get to play together.
You're going to start to see there's already this incredible collaboration happening because we all care about our communities. How about sharing our authentic self? Like here we are, we're all, leaders of our organizations. We're here as us sharing our hearts, no pretense. That's what we need places to do. So there's going to be ways that we'll make sure that energy can flow through the system. So our playground is nourished and alive until it's not needed anymore. There might be a moment where a new system comes in and we're going to say, wow, that was so good what we learned. And now we're going to take that and we're going to blossom into even a new garden, right? We need to be willing to let go of everything we think it looks like and actually like jump in and engage. And that's really what we're inviting from all of you. So I'm going to add another layer. I'm going to add into this beautiful group of women, Claire Shea from Heart Math. She likes being behind the scenes, but we were saying, Claire, you got to come up and hang out. And so look at this. Now we have Unify, we have Good of the Whole, we have Global Coherence Pulse, we have Heart Math. You know, these are leaders coming together saying it's important that we find ways to get out the messages that we have that are so important and that we can support ourselves first and foremost. It's nourishing for us. And then as it's nourishing for us, we know that it's nourishing for the communities that we love. So Claire, I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Teresa. It's such a privilege and pleasure to join today with this amazing group of individuals and organizations committed to bringing more love, peace, and coherence to the planet.
And you're going to introduce Roland, one of our favorite friends. Roland, I'm going to bring him in. We'll surround him by women, okay? Here we go.
He hates that. Well, let me introduce my colleague, friend, and the Director of Research at HeartMath Institute. Not only does he lead the research team to bring the science of spirit forth, but he also is the face of the Institute, sharing discoveries and validation of the science of the heart. Roland, welcome. And I do have a question from the team. Our first question is, what is the goal of coherence in the global upshift?
Well,
you can, if you want to say hello first, we can always hold that question just a little bit because we love you, Roland. We thank you so much for being here. And, you know, you are the face of not only HeartMath Institute, but I've noticed over in the last, like this year, like you're on interviews and courses, and that means that the idea of cultivating coherence has started to reach the masses. Like it's no longer just a little fringe thing, but it's out there. And I so appreciate all the things that you're doing to help spread the science and the experience of coherence. That's what HeartMath has done forever. And it's a blessing. And thank God more and more people are starting to get that. So thank you. Thank you, Roland.
Thank you, Teresa. And, you know, to kind of echo a little bit some of what Claire said, you know, I couldn't remember. I'm glad Claire said it. 4 years ago was when the Pulse, it's been 4 years already. And I don't know that everyone really understands how I think important the Pulse was, what that started. And you know, I've been in the nonprofit world now for, I don't know, 30 some years and director of research, and can't tell you how many conversations I've had with other nonprofits over the years of, yeah, we have the same mission, we need to collaborate, blah, 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 blah. And then when the rubber met the road, it always fell apart for various reasons. And the Pulse is the first to really bring organizations from around the world in a collaborative way that I've witnessed. So, and to see the evolution of it over the last 4 years is just awesome to me. And it is a hallmark. Collaboration is a hallmark of the new, of where we're headed, of the evolution of consciousness. We've got to get along with each other, right, and really collaborate. And you know, from my perspective, and I think a lot of us here at HeartMath would say that probably the largest problem facing humanity is probably, well, it's not what a lot of people I think would guess. It's not necessarily global warming and on and on, the problems very real problems we face, but it's separation. From my perspective, it's the separation from our own larger selves, you know, and who we really are. And then that translates down into to the world, the separation from others. And I think we see that mirrored in the world today, probably more than ever. And it's so important that we do come together and the power of coming together, especially when we come together in coherence, which is kind of what our research has been around. And I like what you said, Teresa. And I have some vague memories now of 30 some years ago going to scientific conferences and talking about this concept of coherence in terms of our bodies and our physiology and our social interactions, and and how the heart and brain communicate with each other either coherently or not so coherently, and kind of getting the blank looks of like, what are you talking about? So to see coherence, Coherence even has its own summit coming up now, and to see it everywhere, and people talking about the heart and the heart brain relationship, and the importance of that. It's everywhere, and well, not everywhere. It hasn't necessarily hit the big masses, but it's certainly growing, and I think starting to cross over, as you said, into more of the mass consciousness. And I'm sorry, I forgot the question, Claire, that the team wanted to ask me. Or Teresa or Claire, one of you remind me.
We want to know, what is the role of coherence in the global upshift?
In the global upshift? Well, I would say it's the key to the global upshift. Coherence, just as the term at a high level, is well, I could say it's a concept, but it's much more than a concept. Coherence is fundamental to every branch of science there is, from the very small to the subatomic molecular level to the universe. Coherence is discussed and talked about. And it ultimately is really talking about or describing the harmonious relationships of the parts of complex systems. And in a coherent system, there's harmony. Things are getting together in an energy efficient way. And in a coherent system, and this is, I think, critical to understand, the parts have got to be connected. There is communication among the parts. Otherwise, you can't have that type of harmony. And so when we're talking about global coherence, we're talking about the interconnectedness of all the parts, us, but not just us, nature, trees, animals. It's the whole system. And the connection field, well, that's perfectly coined, because from my perspective, it is fields that connect us. And that's what led to the Global Coherence Initiative, which I forget how long ago we started as a special research project, probably at least 15 years ago, where we're measuring the fields of the Earth, the magnetic resonant fields of the Earth and people, and looking at the interconnectedness. And I'm not going to go into all the science stuff today, but a lot of amazing, surprising findings have come out of that's published, and I've talked about before on the pulses and things. But one of I believe, well, I know in some levels, that I actually know, but also believe that we are interconnected in multiple levels in multiple ways. One of those are the fields we can measure. And that's like GCI, and where we're measuring that interconnectedness of the fields we live in, which I'm suggesting connect us all. And as Teresa will often, I think, repeat now, a saying that's come out of that work is, become more aware of what we're feeding the field. And I would add part two, that we can say scientifically now, yes, because it matters. What we feed the field has very real and measurable consequences in the way it interacts with the world, in the physical world. And the Global Coherence Initiative has also evolved as well since we first started it. And I'm really honored to be the pulse being part of that from my perspective. It's bringing us together to add more love, intentionally add more coherently focused love and compassion to the planetary field environment. And then so we started with the Global Coherence Monitoring System, which is a network of magnetometers around the Earth to measure the resonant frequencies in the Earth's field, which overlap with our physiology, by the way, which is kind of amazing. Then because I'm suggesting all the fields we live in connect all systems, living systems, including nature. So we added a global tree monitoring project to have trees. And trees are awesome research participants, because they don't mind if we put a couple of electrodes in them and they stay put, right? So we can monitor them 24 hours a day, year after year. And so I'm thrilled to say that project was way harder to do than I thought it would be. is finally up and running, and we've got about 100, almost 100 trees all around the world now that were being monitored. In fact, Grace is the name of Teresa's tree that has one of our monitors on it.
Yeah.
And I actually remembered your tree's name. Then we also introduced which I think everybody here is familiar with, the Global Coherence app, which not only allows us to measure our personal coherence, but the community's coherence. And that's really important from a research perspective because we want to ask new questions. We know, well, before I go there, the latest addition is the Global Consciousness Project 2.0. And one of the questions I'm most often asked is, okay, we come together, we do these global meditations or prayers or whatever they are. So what? Does it matter? Does it do anything? And GCP 2.0 gives us a new way of addressing that question. So that's why I can say with confidence, yes, it does matter. And this is the next evolution of the Global Consciousness Project started by Roger Nelson, and who approached me, I'm honored to say, about 3 years ago and said, please take this over. I'm retiring. It can't, it's got to go forward. And which I agreed with. It's just too important of a project. I resisted for a year, but finally agreed to do it. It's been a huge undertaking and a completely redesigned, re-envisioned version of this. So these are all citizen scientist projects that all of us, the community, can get involved in different ways around the world to really address the questions. How are we interconnected? Does it really matter? Is there a global consciousness? Do we affect the field? Does our individual contributions matter? These are the questions we're addressing. And one of the, I'll just mention this because one of the hypotheses, I'll say, of GCP 2.0, which is different than GCP 1, which showed that if those of you that may not be familiar with, I think most here would be, is that when something happens in the world, it gets a lot of attention, immediate attention, that a lot of people pay attention to and feel something is the important part, that it interacts with these devices around the world in a measurable way. So that's why we can say with confidence that the quality of our consciousness does interact with the physical world. But these events that showed these results, which are the results, by the way, are 1 trillion to 1 odds against chance that this is a real effect. So it's very, very strong statistics. But these were large events or events that evoked a response in a large number of people. One of our new questions and hypotheses, which we already have some supporting data for, I'll say ahead of time, is that it isn't so much the number of people, it's the quality of the consciousness. It's how coherent are we? In other words, a much smaller group who are coherently focused with a shared intention can also impact the world in a measurable way, right? Maybe even more so. So that's one of the new questions we're asking. We're starting to ask that already. And in fact, the Global Coherence Pulse was the first place we looked at that. And as Teresa, I know you know. And yes, the answer is, at least the preliminary answer is yes. Even a much smaller number of people, hundreds in the hundreds, can have a measurable effect on the entire global field. And I do think of it anyway as a field effect. So we've got the energetic fields we live in that we can measure, but there's also the deeper, let's call it consciousness field, or the planetary information field, as I sometimes refer to it, that we're all connected to. And on that note, just as something to consider, I mean, we're certainly, when we come together like today and do meditations like we started with, there is a nonlinear amplification effect. And that's awesome because we are literally pulsing the field, right, with more love and compassion. The thing I'd invite you to try and keep in mind is we're always connected to the field. It's not just when we come together for events like this or on full moon care focuses and things that we do. So that's why I'm always encouraging everyone to pause throughout the day, whenever you can remember to do so, and just simply ask yourself, what am I feeding the field? My local field. Am I feeding the field maybe impatience, right? Frustration, traffic jams, right? Or that interaction I had with someone, extreme cases, maybe anger, right? Or am I feeding the field kindness, compassion, appreciation, gratitude, right? And if you find yourself maybe in one of those lower vibrational radiations we're doing, because we can measure that, we really are radiating into the field in a measurable way. Pause, shift to the heart, take a few breaths through the heart, right? Activate a more renewing feeling, one that we want to choose in other words, let's choose what we're feeding the field with more consciousness and become co-creative in the new world, is the way I like to think of it, the new earth. So, Teresa, thank you for inviting me, and lovely to be here and see everyone. I see so many familiar faces and a lot of new faces as well.
I know. We love you. We love you so much, Roland. And I love how you've been able to bring the science. Like anytime we need the science of coherence, because the science really helps us to reinforce the experiences that we're having and give them some validation. So we keep kind of choosing it and coming forward. And you always do both in such a really beautiful and elegant way. So thanks for adding your love. I'm gonna add Julie back in. I'm gonna add Tammy back in. I know Tammy, you were gonna just mention something. We're also on Upshift Forum right now. All the people that are kind of coming together for another collaboration, and so they'll get to share in these insights. But yeah, I wanted to see if you ladies wanted to add something here while we have Roland and what we feed the field.
Yeah, I would just say thank you. Thank you, Roland. I'm so grateful for your presence and your work and your vantage points that you've been able to so eloquently share with the people that are in your sphere and your space as that expands over time. It's been something that's been foundational for others of us to be able to not only receive and implement in our own lives, but build on with what we are trying to ripple out into the field and humanity. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about this also being a part of the World Upshift Forum right now is because it's another convergence of collaboration. We have these, I like to call them legacy peacekeepers and legacy change makers, much like you, Roland, doing this work that is really has been anchoring pieces and segments of what is necessary, so much of it foundational for the work that is needed to be done to move forward with the noosphere and the recent holo movement that's come up, a lot of the peace work that has been, quietly tucked away in little corners of the world, but really acupuncture points for building the field. And so I'm very, very grateful, Roland, for all that you've done and the fact that we get to now kind of knit this together, because there's so much that's emerging in a much, much larger collaboration. We're a part of something so much bigger than we probably even know or realize. So deepest gratitude. Thank you for being here and sharing your wisdom and experiences with us.
Wow. I mean, what amazing what those organizations are doing and actually working together in collaboration. Such a prime example of how different things can be, right? Oh, here's Tammy now. How was that, Tammy? It was amazing, yes.
Oh my gosh, you guys, Roland McCready is so smart. And Teresa and Julie are so great. And it just is such a joy to be able to work with them and collaborate on the connection field and to have them involved in the World Upshift. Very, very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's what I love about that is that, this whole World Upshift Forum, this whole World Upshift movement is exactly about that. But that was a living, breathing example of organizations that are already doing it. So thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that they could be here and that we could all be here together. We also have now coming up another friend who is coming to us from South America. His name is Juan Carlos. And he is going to talk to us about ceremony and ancient wisdom and technology and the role of these things in the global upshift. So please enjoy.
Hello, everyone. I'm very happy here to share about the role of ancient wisdom, ceremony, and technology on this global upshift. I am Juan Carlos Kaiten, I'm a social alchemist, and I am working in the Planetary Alignment Initiative. And I am very happy to share about how important this topic is and the moment that the amazing moment humanity is facing right now. So I would like to share some information, some knowledge and experiences of what we're working on the Planetary Alignment Initiative. And I will share the screen with all of you. Okay, so what we are doing right now, as you know, some of you might know, I've been working with Barbara Mars-Hobart for many years before she passed. And I would just like to start sharing the moment that we're living right now. This is a very important moment in the history of humanity because many people speaks about this, and indigenous wisdom and elders, they are talking about the importance of this moment. We are in the moment of reaching planetary consciousness. And many indigenous leaders, they say this is going to happen in 2026, 2025. They used to speak that prophecies from ancient Egypt, the Mayans, the Aztecs, Hawaiians, many people are coming also in Peru, many indigenous leaders, they are speaking that a big transition is happening. The energy and the level of frequency that we as the whole of humanity can reach is going to be determining the future of humanity. We are in the process, as you know, of ascending. The question is whether it's going to be through turmoil or if that is going to happen in consciousness, in harmony. So as you can see here, we are at the moment of reaching this planetary consciousness in the next 10 years. What does it mean? It means that as we are growing in complexity as society, we are moving from the age of independence to the age of interdependence. The world is getting very interconnected, and we are growing in the capacity to feel in more as global citizens. We believe after moving from planetary consciousness, we're going to reach universal humanity, that is a higher expanded consciousness. So how do we get there? How sacred sites, technology, and this future that is coming for humanity, we believe is emerging. There is already right now a very strong movement around bioregions. And bioregions are like the planetary postal codes, are the postal codes of the planet. This is the way on how working on sacred sites, working with ancient community, we can start like mapping all of the sacred sites of the planet, which is they're already mapped, but we can actually start working more closely, protecting, preserving sacred sites. Bioregions are composed with cities and the prairies, the mountains, as they are pretty much bringing people together, as political borders are dividing people and countries and societies and cultures. Bioregions are uniting communities. As communities are coming to work together for the rivers, they're coming working together to save the lakes, the forest, the environment. This is a movement that is happening right now on how communities are building learning bioregional networks. And sacred sites have a very important role here because we are working, as you can see, this is just like a map of some of the sacred, more important sacred sites in the planet. But the truth is that the whole planet has sacred spots. Every region, every bioregion have sacred sites, and they are connected through ley lines. The important work that the wisdom keepers, they say that we need to keep praying and doing ceremony in sacred sites. Why? Because they are connected. The sacred sites are keeping the consciousness in the planet in a healthy state. if we don't do ceremony, if we don't do prayer and pilgrimage through sacred sites, it's like cleaning the nadis and the chakras, the energy body of the planet. And that is directly connected to consciousness in the planet. So that's why indigenous people, they keep doing ceremony, pilgrimages, because they are working on the divine side. And this is just an example of how we are working on social alchemy. We are working with a threefold view. If we want to bring transformation to the planet, we can just not work at the ground level. We need to have an understanding of the energetic architecture, how the divine world works. And for that, I've been studying alchemy, which I call it the science of the spirit. If we understand how the world works at the energetic level, then we will have a better understanding to work on the social architecture, on the eagle view. And once we have a better understanding of social architectures, then we can, with more precision, develop technologies, processes, and projects that can positively impact society. Right now, what is happening, many people is doing amazing work. They're helping, saving trees, planting trees, doing work at the community level. But we are still not necessarily shifting the social architecture of the planet. Well, a good friend of mine, Bernard Lyotard, used to say that the problem of humanity, many people will say, is human greed. And he says that's false. Humans are good in nature. The problem is the social architecture that is impacting directly the behavior of people. If we shift social architectures, a greater and faster change in the planet will happen. And this means pretty much right now, all of the architecture of our governance model, economic model, education model, and justice models are based in masculine principles. What we are proposing with social alchemy is balance our social architecture with feminine principles. That's a way of how we can bring new ways of economy, gift economy, shared economy, and those will directly transform the ways on how economy works, and people will be able to give more because they will get more. In governance, we can bring synergistic democracy in many new ways, and that's already happening. How we are transforming bottom-up and top-down ways of community engagement, so we can really reach our collective intelligence, collective wisdom, collective consciousness. Our democracy is the best we have now, but is not sufficient anymore to the complexity and to the rapid decision-making that we need to make as a unified global society. So this is the work that is happening. And right now, in terms of what I see, I've been working on this formula for a planetary awakening. We need a critical mass of people reaching higher frequency, resonance, and coherence. How does it happen? Right now, one of the projects I'm working on is called Codes for a Planetary Awakening. And one of the codes is the activation of the network of networks. If we have small groups of people working on sacred sites using technology, because right now that's happening. A friend of mine is working on bringing sound medicine, that she's bringing it at the level of FDA, working with hospitals. She's a composer of music, orchestra, and she's also a neuroscientist. And she's very precisely bringing technology to heal, but also to raise frequency. If right now we are exploring, if we do concerts with these frequencies in sacred sites with small groups of people, but connected globally, we can then impact the collective. I mean, we will be measuring all of that, but we will be measuring how is that impacting the collective consciousness. So the theory says that if we have a 1% of humans working as a network, that is going to bring us to, that can shift the global psyche. The problem for that, we have way past the critical mass, but we need to reach the frequency, the resonance, and the coherence. Frequency means that we are connected to the frequency of your heart. Every person knows their purpose. And once you are connected to the frequency of your heart, you can then find your resonant others. And those pockets of coherence of people that are doing the inner work. The planetary awakening, by the way, is going to happen inside. It's going to be an inner experience. It's not that the world will change. It will change our perception of the world. The blue might just get bluer. The green will be green, brighter. And it's not about discovering new places. It's about seeing the same places with new eyes. And that's what is going to be changing, a change of frequency and resonance, how we resonate with our resonant others, people that have a shared purpose with us. And then once we met, then we still need to find coherence within the people we meet. We go from synchronicity to serendipity. Synchronicity is when the magic of, wow, I have just made my resonant other, a little bit of a vocational dating, as Barbara Marskovar will say. The magic of when we meet and we love each other, that's the synchronicity, but serendipity is the magic, like what just happened, what just we did together. That's when we reach coherence. So the work right now, and why sacred sites are so important, is that it's just like keeping the chakras of the body healthy. It's just like acupuncture, making sure that our nadis, the energy lines in our body are clear, the energy is flowing clearly. We're working on this project of on these three areas across sacred sites. It's about collective prayer. Actually, we are using now collective intention, so it's not necessarily prayer from a religious perspective. It's collective prayer, collective healing, and collective co-creation. These three elements are the pillars that we believe are necessary for the planetary upshift that is already happening. I mean, I call this the planetary party. The question is whether you want to be in the party. The party is happening. Gaia is orchestrating. What role are you want to play? Are you gonna miss it? It's the most important event in the history of the planet, probably, when we ascend into, when we use technology in service to the expansion of human consciousness, and not where we're going, having technology in detriment of human consciousness. That's the threshold that humanity is facing in this moment. Everybody's talking about smart cities. You know what? I don't think we want to live in a smart city. I was invited to speak into a smart cities conference, and I say, I don't think I have something to say about smart cities. Yet, if you want to speak about conscious cities, conscious communities, I have a lot to say. The threshold that we have to take right now is moving from the jargon of smart cities to conscious cities, conscious communities. And the difference is technology in service to the expansion of human consciousness. And there's a lot technology can do to that. AI can do a lot to help us expand human consciousness and accelerate the ascension of humankind. Or we could go to all of the apocalyptic theories and conspiracy theories about the future of humanity. That's a future we don't want to go. So what will happen? What does it need? What does it take for us to shift in consciousness? Is unify in prayer, in intention, unified intention, do the inner personal work to heal personally and collective, because it matters, it will matter the quality of the frequency of our interactions and how we work as a network. And that will allow us to move into co-creation, because co-creation can only happen in a field of love. And if we are not clear and healthy inside, with a healthy body, healthy emotions, healthy mind, healthy spirit, we won't be co-creating at the highest level of possibility. So this is the way on how we can bring technology, sacred sites, co-creation towards a planetary upshift, a planetary awakening. So I'm very happy to be here sharing this experience with you, and looking forward to keep co-creating, connecting, and doing the work in the planetary party, where everybody comes and bring their gift and we celebrate. So see you there in the planetary party. Thank you very much.
So much appreciation for Juan. I mean, being a musician myself, still being a signed recording artist, understanding that, kind of the sacred essence of music and bringing that into popular culture is just, that's really resonated with me. You got me vibing right now.
The sound, the frequency, the prayer, the co-creation, the way all of this is all tied together. It's very fascinating. And Juan Carlos, wow. I mean, thank you for the work you're doing in the world, Juan Carlos. And it's a reminder to me that there are many things that are possible that we may not already know, and those worlds will become opened up to us when we get to know each other and we kind of expand our spheres and open up and lean in and learn each other's genius zones and what we're all about, right? Yeah. So I want to take just a quick second and note that this entire broadcast, this entire World Upshift Forum that has been coming to you live here from Lerici, Italy, at the Bay of Poets. The tech and the broadcast has been handled by Hubcast, a fabulous, fabulous organization, company, partners of Unify, and now partners of the World Upshift Organization. We also have our lovely Tina on site here, who is our director, who's working hand in hand with them. And this is all going seamlessly because you're experiencing it and loving it, I'm sure. And I just want to say thank you to them. They're fantastic. And note that their very own Mark, who's, I think they're with them now, helping to run all of this, had the opportunity to do an interview with Paul Stamets about psychedelics and talk a little bit about, hear from him a little bit about the role of psychedelics in the global upshift. And we wanted to be able to share this with you. So extra gratitude to Hubcast and to Mark for doing this interview. And of course, Paul Stamets. I hope you guys enjoy this.
Thank you, team.
Mark. All right, we're going to call on Mr. Paul Stamets first. Paul, great to see you again, and thank you for taking the time out of your day today to join us.
Well, thank you all for having me. I want to first acknowledge I'm on the ancestral unceded territories of the Kalus people in a remote island in British Columbia. Even though the title of this is plant medicine, mushrooms are not plants, so it should be psychedelics, plants and mushrooms, just to get a little equal weight here between the kingdoms. So my life has been dedicated to the subject of, and I'm 68 years of age. I still feel like I'm 32. I have been very much informed by my psilocybin mushroom experiences. I think we're at a time critical in the evolution of the human species where we need to have a paradigm shift in consciousness. And I think psilocybin, from my perspective, is the medicine that is most profound for me seeing into the future. And I think psilocybin is uniquely different than many plants and psychedelics in that it bridges cultures, continents over centuries. There's more than 142 species that are currently identified, with more species being discovered each year. The fact they're circumpolar and they have been used for thousands of years speak to first peoples, indigenous peoples all over the world, exploring their ecosystems. Many people may not realize in the tropical areas of the world, Psilocybe cubensis is very easy to locate, to find. It's a very large mushroom. In the temperate regions of the world, not so. They're very rare, very hard to find. Only since the advent of cattle and sheep coming from Europe to North America and the practice of creating wood chips for landscaping. It may be that the reservoir for these psilocybin mushrooms were associated with beavers, since they make chips. They have ponds, and there's a lot of water there, etc. But that's just a hypothesis. What is interesting is that as rare as psilocybin mushrooms are in temperate regions, are as common that they are in tropical regions. So there's no doubt we all came from Africa. I think that no one really can seriously argue that we did not. And with human migration, we colonized Europe. Migration and colonization from a biological perspective is the way of passage of humans and animals migrating from one ecosystem to another. So from the migration of humans colonizing Europe, then humans spread throughout the world. So this is why my indigenous friends here in British Columbia like the term first peoples to arrive in an ecosystem and then shepherding that and holding it sacred. And through migration patterns, you meet other individuals on the trail of life and their friend or foe. Far better to be friend than to be an enemy. I mean, obviously it's very dangerous. You know, if you end up meeting a stranger and you get into an altercation, you get wounded, especially back in the day when we didn't have antibiotics or could treat infections. But the generosity of extension of knowledge and tools and wisdom creates a friendship that's reciprocal. And then in many cultures, the exchange of gifts establishes a relationship of generosity and kindness and cooperation. And that's where I think we are here today at a critical point. I think psilocybin builds bridges. And I think psilocybin makes nicer people. And I think psilocybin makes smarter people. And the research that's coming out on neurogenesis, not only with psilocybin, but with some of these other psychedelics, really points to something fundamental in being able to improve the neurological health of our species. We need people to be more generous, kind, and an extension of generosity, because this is how we build relationships. Right now, we need to come together as one people, more so than ever before. It is our diversity, our biodiversity, our diversity of ethnicities that give us strength, because each one of us, coming from our life experiences or from our cultural backgrounds, bring with us potential solutions, understandings, insights, the ability to help one another. When you help somebody, and I believe evolution is not the survival of the fittest. I believe it's the extension of generosity of the surplus beyond your own needs to others. And when you do that, it's just human nature for them to want to reciprocate. Because when you are in a time of need, they will remember the fact that, you know, you were there to help them. So I think we've come to a point in time that psychedelics, and in particular psilocybin, brings people together in a network of individuals and communities where we're all nodes of crossing on a giant network. And the diversity of our ethnicities, the diversity of our cultural heritage, the diversity of the species and substances that we use creates a unified field of consciousness that all of us can participate in and help each other. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, how great to have Paul with us. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much. So we come to the end of our live session today. There are some great appreciation and gratitude to those people that have made this happen. Irvin Laszlo, of course, who was the great kind of manifester of the World Upshift movement. We've got Roger Casale and Maria, who we saw at the beginning and yesterday. Dear thanks and appreciation to you. And of course, the mayor of Lerici, who has been able to facilitate and help us to organize this event and is also supporting us for next year. Do you have any?
Oh, do I have any? Absolutely. As I mentioned before, Hubcast, a wonderful team at Hubcast who are based in Vancouver, British Columbia, but also have studios all over the world, has shown up in a big way and made this broadcast possible. They are so pro. Everybody at Hubcast, Peter, Mark, the whole team, we love you and thank you so, so much for making this possible. Hubcast is the best. Also, we want to say a big thank you to My Green Pod. Jarvis is the co-founder of My Green Pod, and we're so grateful to your whole team and all the efforts of collaboration that really came into making this event possible.
So I need to say thank you to Unify as well, because you and your team and broadcasting this and your network and really supporting that. I mean, there's been a lot going on behind the scenes, right? You wouldn't believe what's been going on behind the scenes, but it's been amazing. So thank you to Unify and
it's
all
our
the
great
team.
joy. It's our great joy and honor for sure. And, we also want to thank all of the speakers, everybody who's been on the segments that you've been able to experience and engage with so far. Thank you. And those who interviewed them as well. It's been so fantastic. We know you've given of your time and your efforts and your talents. We're deeply appreciative.
Yeah. So that's it for today, right?
Well, we also want to thank our partners. So we have quite a few. We won't read the whole list, but we're so excited about the partners and all of you out there who have taken this time with us. We ended with Paul Stamets because we thought this would be a segment you guys could listen to that opens the door of possibility in our thinking, that is indicative of these times that we're a part of right now as things are shifting, perhaps into all of this new possibility and what we might want to just think on and be a part of ourselves. So with the World Upshift Forum, you can come and be a part of this movement by going to worldupshift.org.
Yeah, let's create that mycelium network within our organizations, within our communities, within our networks. Let's bring those networks together and create a much bigger network. So that's our kind of human and business organizational way of really connecting with what nature's teaching us through the mycelium network, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. Thank you for bearing with us, listening to us, supporting us. Don't forget you can donate if you feel inspired to, just contribute something towards the cause. That would be greatly appreciated. And more importantly, please come and join the movement and get involved so that this time next year, you'll be here with us.
Yeah, having these conversations. We want to hear what is in your heart.
We do.
Thanks for being here with us.